This morning, I'm going to undo all of the great things that your mother ever taught you. And if there are any mothers listening this morning, they're going to plug their ears and say, Mark, please don't tell the people that. I am here this morning to tell you that you should all stop being so careful and so cautious and start taking more risks with your life. Now, I know you've all been told 1,000 times, be careful, look out, don't take risks at all. I'm saying take more risk. Now, I'm going to give you some illustrations of how risk is a good thing. In a moment, I'll talk about risk from a faith point of view. But firstly, let me tell you about a risk decision that decided the destiny of humankind. About 50,000 years ago, there were two different types of beings on this planet which had some resemblance to human beings. They coexisted. They were the Neanderthals and the Cro-Magnons. And at some point, we knew that only one of those types of being could survive. So the decision is this: who is going to survive and become the ancestor of all modern human beings? Will it be the Neanderthals or the Cro-Magnons? Now, if you were there at the time, the decision would have been easy. The Neanderthals were bigger and stronger and vastly more intelligent than the Cro-Magnons. The Neanderthals, in fact, had bigger brains than we do. So the next time somebody insults you and says, what a Neanderthal you are, you can say, oh, thank you very much. The Cro-Magnons were small, and they were weak, and they were not quite as smart. They had a smaller brain than the Neanderthals. So who's going to survive? And of course, you'll be surprised to know that it was the Cro-Magnons who survived. Weaker, smaller, and less intelligent, they were the ones to live. We are all descended from Cro-Magnons and not Neanderthals. So what made the difference? And this is what it was. The Neanderthals were too intelligent. They were too cautious, and they were too careful. And when climate change happened, such that the animals they were eating migrated, the Neanderthals said, look, if we leave this place that is our home, we face risk. If we go someplace else into the unknown, we don't know what's going to happen. We need to be careful. And we need to be cautious, and we need to stay right where we are. The somewhat stupider Cro-Magnons didn't have that much intelligence. They saw the animals moving location, and they said, hungry, follow. They took a risk. They didn't know where they were going. They didn't know what dangers they were going to face. They were not cautious. They weren't intelligent. They just threw themselves at what they wanted. They survived. Meanwhile, the much more intelligent Neanderthals died out. They died safely. They weren't eaten by saber-toothed tigers. They died cautiously. They died in a familiar place. They died comfortably, but they died. The risk takers survived. Sometimes taking a risk is the thing that leads to life, and sometimes being cautious is the thing that leads towards death. Now, I know you wild Presbyterians, and I have to give a little word of caution about risk. I'm not saying you should all go out and start skydiving. I don't want to hear about your bungee jumping adventures. I don't want you going out and trying to jump a jet-powered motorcycle over the Grand River. And I don't want you all going to the casino. gambling away your house and saying, well, Mark told me to do it. Risk is not quite that. Risk is the thing that makes our lives meaningful. And if you don't take risks that are substantial and frightening, you won't have a life. Let me tell you about the kind of risks that we take every day, all the time, and we tell our children to take these risks because we know without them there is nothing. Friendship is a risk. Opening yourself up to another human being is dangerous. You make yourself vulnerable to them, and yet we want to take that risk because we know that human relationship is worth the risk. Even if we are hurt, we say it was worth it. If you are so cautious and careful with your friendship that you won't open up to anybody else, you'll survive, you'll be safe. But what kind of a life is that? What's another incredible risk that we take all the time and we even commend to other people? How about this one? Marriage. What kind of a risk is that? None of us really know another person completely, and yet in marriage we agree to open ourselves to that person, dedicate ourselves to them. Marriage is a risk. It's a dangerous thing. And yet I hope for the most part that those of you who are married will say, yeah, that was dangerous, but by gosh, it was the right thing.